Welcome to Dear Alice, a lifestyle approach to interior design.
Well, we're going to tap into that fun buzz today about this Summer Olympic Games and talk about some ways that we see French influence in our modern day design. But first, I want to know from you, Corey and Sue, if you were an Olympic athlete, what would be your sport?
That's pretty easy. I mean, it debuted last in Tokyo, but skateboarding.
Oh, duh.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's a sport now.
Totally. You know what's crazy though? Is
It always was a sport, Corey.
It always
was.
It always was.
Yes.
It started in pools and vert is what they call it, the vert ramps. And vert skating is not in the Olympics. It's only street skating.
Interesting.
Which is weird.
Can you define street skating for me?
Street skating is like what you would do, at like a library, like with like stairs and like handrails and stuff like that. So they just kind of build like a course.
Is it more technically difficult? Like you can show a lot more technicalities by doing that than just vert.
And you can use obstacles in different ways.
Okay.
So like the vert ramp, you're kind of just doing tricks, you know what I mean? From like side to side, and there's like different combinations of stuff. Yeah. Very hard, very interesting. So honestly, I've never even dropped in on a vert ramp. Super scary.
Yeah.
But you can just approach things in a different way. And like you can get a little bit more creative, in my opinion. But I'm a street skater, so So I was like obviously super hyped when that
Oh my gosh!
I'm so excited to watch it this year.
So who's your favorite of the?
Yuki, he won the Olympics. Which was pretty cool because he won in his hometown.
What? That's
like
amazing.
In the very first skateboarding.
So he's like the one to watch this set of games.
I mean, I started skateboarding in '99, so 25 years ago. Where it is now is unbelievable to me. I can't even imagine it. Last weekend I went and saw Tony Hawk did this thing. Tony Hawk did a 999, and it was it took him forever to do it.
That's like a rotation, right?
Yeah, so two
more than 3 times.
2.5 rotations.
Wow.
So and that was unheard of in '99. And Tony Hawk had been skating for 20 years at that point. He was in his late 30s. I saw a kid last weekend in Salt Lake City, 9 years old, did 3 of them back to back to back in front of Tony Hawk.
I just got cold chills.
Yeah, and it's just skateboarding is next level.
Yeah,
so cool.
It's insane what these guys.
Tell
are
the
doing.
people what you wear around your neck, Corey.
Everyone thinks this is a whale tail, which I don't know why. Maybe I could love whales.
Yeah,
but this is a skateboarding truck, a brass skateboarding truck.
Cool.
That's so cool.
So this is just
Very
my
your homage.
I'm still a skater, at heart.
Yes.
Yeah. I love
Just
that.
A skater boy.
Yeah.
Say see you later.
Said
boy.
see you later, boy. That's awesome. Yeah.
I had to. Okay. Awesome.
Suze.
I would probably do synchronized swimming. Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I think it's so beautiful to watch. It's so pretty. I love bodies of water.
Yes, you do.
Everyone knows this. Give me a bridge, I'll jump off.
We know Sue needs to be submerged in water to be truly happy.
What does that mean about
That
myself?
totally suits you.
Yeah, but I feel especially I know this wouldn't be efficient at all for just winning a gold medal. I just love a swim. I think the swim caps, I've actually never worn one, but I love looking at the pictures of old vintage swimmers with a fabulous swim cap. And I'm probably, I hope this isn't disrespectful, but I just think it's so beautiful, the costuming
I love
of swimming. I think it's so pretty.
Vintage synchronized swimmers. I do think that could be a really cute art installation for you, is to collect vintage swim caps and frame them and do a whole series.
I could do that.
That'd be so cute. In a bathroom, in your pool house one day.
Okay. Yeah. So again, you wouldn't win the medal, but the photo shoot before the swim meet would be
with all your homies dressed identical.
Oh you would be one of them.
And your red lip
I'd
would
do
look
it.
so cute with all that.
I know, and it wouldn't get smudged in the water.
I love that.
Riddle me that.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
synchronized swimming. What about you, Jess Bennett?
Well, I'm not the sportiest of gals, but I here's what I know I love.
Just think about swim caps with flowers.
I love a good costume. And in my memory, when I think about the different athletes that are most memorable, do you guys remember FloJo? It must have been the 90s. She was a runner. I think she did hurdles. I don't know if you call that track and field or what. But guys, in my mind, I can still see her. She was so memorable. And she had the long fingernails. And she would have one high cut, French cut trunk on one side and then a long leg on the other, and all these custom made costumes. And you couldn't look at any other runner but just FloJo. So I think right now tennis is having a real moment in fashion.
Yeah.
It's like kind of prep school. It's cute. So it's also really be tempting to want to play tennis just for the costuming.
And I love the pageantry of tennis.
Yes.
Like, I love watching tennis. Like,
you can also play tennis till you're 80, 90. Like it feels like you could do it at any age. It's always chic and it's girlfriendy.
A grass or clay court though, like my gosh,
so
that
romantic,
looks so rad.
right?
Yeah. I don't even know why we're playing on concrete out here.
Wouldn't that be fun to be like, you know how guys have these goals of like playing all the best courses in their lifetime? Like that could be your thing in tennis. It's like, I want to play in Wimbledon and I want to play in, I'm not even.
Strawberries and cream. I just love the tradition behind it. It's just, it's so good.
So really good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Tennis is rad.
Yeah.
No, it is really
rad.
fun.
I'm so excited.
Pickleball is having a moment. It's fun, but tennis is the purest.
Pickleball is like if you can't tennis.
If you can't tennis, play pickleball. That's why
I played pickleball this morning. So
Cheers.
I mean, I can't tennis is the reason. So
fun.
But I admire it.
I do too. I like you as a tennis player.
Thank you. I feel like I'd want to get a convertible.
Oh, you for sure would.
Right? If I were to do that, that'd be fun.
You'd wear scarves.
Thank you.
No
doubt. Yes.
No doubt. Okay.
Well, one thing's for sure. We all want to be French.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's true. When it comes to like French fashion.
Yeah.
We all want to be the French girl. We all want to be effortless like the French. And so I think that's what we're going to talk today is about like, how do we translate that into interiors? And like I said before, every client wants a note of it. They want to feel some French in their space. And like, what is that about? And so that's what we're going to kind of break down today in 5 different things that you can do to kind of bring the French into your home. So
I love it.
Help define it too.
Yeah, let's do
Give you a
define
little
it.
bit. There will be a little bit of history here.
There are so many.
A little bit. They have a lot of history.
Yes, they
Trust me.
do. There are so many decades and eras and centuries of French because it is such an old country. And I think that is what makes this such a rich story and way to decorate because you could be any of them. And sometimes it's easy to think about them as like the city houses or the country houses, right? There's Provence, there's, the Parisian apartments, there's really all the Louis, there's so much there, but we're going to really just strip all that away and speak about it as basically as possible to keep us all on the same train today. And so we're going to break it into 2 things, French traditional, and then we're going to do French modern. Yeah. And I think those are things that we can easily work into design today without it becoming a deep, rich history lesson. Yeah. And you guys turning off the podcast midway through because you're like, this is the deep end. I don't want to think that hard.
We're in,
I know.
In the weeds.
Yes.
And I like that we're defining them each because really there's a mix. Like there's traditional and then there's the modern and then there's the mix, which I think is like our favorite spaces have the mix.
Yeah.
It's the traditional with the modern layered on top of it. And I think that's what most people react to is that tension.
Can we go into a little bit of like how French traditional is different from like, would we call it American traditional too? Just to like,
it's just better.
It's like more ornate, more detail.
Definitely.
I think it comes down to the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
I think just like it's such like an old tale of time of just like, they just have the artisans there. We were talking about this morning that like, just the carvers and the amount of people that have like flocked to France, not only just like artists, musicians, all these different like pieces, but like they just know how to do it right. In Europe, they've been just doing it so much longer than we have. And yes, we had the big migration, the exodus to America, right? And so we have a lot of these like tastes of it, in different like communities and stuff, and you feel that. But I think like if you really want to get steeped in it, you go to Europe, you go to France, you go to Paris, you go to the Louvre, and then you go to Versailles.
With any of the arts, like
any of the arts.
Music, fashion. Yeah. It's just I feel like Europe and France probably in particular, like the tastemakers, and then we kind of borrow the things and lend the things from them, and in every facet, like music is always popular. Like a band that you like, guarantee they got popular in like Europe first. It's like that's the Killers, Kings of Leon.
The
like
Killers
the Beatles
were bigger in France first.
Yeah, like people think that they're like. Madonna said this, but she's like, "Who's your favorite British band?" She said the Killers because she thought they were a British band, but they're Yeah, they're from Vegas. So yeah, it's just like
That's so wild.
everything
Go.
that.
So it needs to be adopted first by Europe before Americans will accept its greatness.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like our
it's the
older
trial-
cousins
it's
who
the
were like,
trial period.
Yeah, that we're all like wanting to model our lives after. So like
100%.
they're cool.
exactly.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a
Let's do
couple
what they're
thousand
doing.
years, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
So cool.
exactly.
Well, I mean, French traditional, it embraces old world beauty with ornate crown moldings, gilded mirrors, parquet flooring, dark wood furniture, scenic wallpapers, which are such a vibe right
Such a
now.
hot thing, yeah.
Yeah, marble elements, also really hot, European antique art, and nature-inspired patterns. Not to mention all the Louis, the 14th, the 15th, the 16th. But French interiors also feel collected over time because it's existed for so long. And I think what the French do so well, including in fashion, is that in fashion, they'll resole their shoes. They'll hem those old 501s. Yeah. They continue to reuse things, and that's true for their antiques, their upholstery, the art. Like the gilding, they'll go back and re-gild it. And they have experts in fields, expert craftsmen that still know how to cane French chairs, and they still know the art of doing this one specialty. And then you can go there to get it repaired, where I feel like America is so fast fashion. It's so about convenience. It's so now.
Buy, sell.
Yeah. And so
move on to the next thing.
Right. So when's the last time you guys went and took your denim to have it repaired? Or do you just buy new jeans, you know?
I like always get holes in mine. So for a long time, I was like repairing my own. I learned to do that.
Oh, that's amazing. You're basically French.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's me borrowing from my older cousin, you know, but I mean, like I think if something is built well the first time, it's worth like, you know, restoring or repairing. Like, and I think a lot of this is, and that's why they do it, you know, and because it's steeped in history too. It's like, that's how they've always done it. So they do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really cool. And it's something that I admire, and I, you know, hope more people do, because it's, I
think it's also like just so environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
You know, like I was listening to Jean-Louis Denois this morning on a podcast, and I was on the Cherish podcast. You guys got to go listen to that episode. Those of you that are obsessed with interiors like us. He was talking about the work that he does, and he goes into a home, sees its architectural features that are amazing and need to be highlighted. But if there's things that need to be pulled out of a project because they're no longer going to use them, he saves them, and he might use them in a future project. Mm-hmm. Where here in America, you'd see a big dumpster out the window of a New York apartment and you'd be chucking stuff, right? But they're saving it and they're figuring out a way to rework it. And it feels very like reduce, reuse, recycle. It feels
responsible.
Yeah, like they're not using programmed things today, the new furniture, which is like we love an antique rug, right?
Because it all feels one of a kind. Like, why would you throw away something that
storytelling?
feels one of a kind?
Yeah, and it's thousands of years old or hundreds of years old, and it has a great story. And it was hand knotted beautifully the first time, and those knots can be repaired and they can be cleaned, and it's a really sustainable way to think.
Yeah.
So
they used like real gold leaf and they gilded things. Like it wasn't just like a cheap plated brass. Like it's worth keeping. Like I have antique sconces. I'm like, and they're still so good. Yeah. Like antiques, they're still so good, and they get better with time because they tell that story. Mm-hmm. So
and then stuff doesn't feel copy paste.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know?
Nice. One of a kind.
Yes. So I kind of touched on the traditional French design that's sort of embracing that old world beauty, the crown molds, the gilded mirrors, the parquet floors. Let's talk about
French modern.
The French modern. Yeah.
French modern. The fun thing about France is like to this, like, again, artists like forever have flocked. They flock to France. They flock to Paris. Like you can read any artist biography. I guarantee you if they're good, they've spent moments in France and Paris. And again, I think that's how you see French modern come to pass, because you have kind of the like late 19th century, you have kind of like the decorative art movement. You know, you have like all this traditional things, and you see this evolution of decorative arts, and then you hit, you know, the early 20th century, and then you start to see like Art Nouveau, and which is like so iconic in France, you know, just like you can see the elevators, you can see the stairwells in your mind right now with Art Nouveau. And again, that organic line, which is again, still decorative and still well made, you know, but it's definitely a more modern interpretation of what was done previously. Mm-hmm. And then you get to Art Deco, you know, which like we love. Mm-hmm. And that it's real fun to like look at that history, because like that kind of like had it's like Renaissance in France in 1910s. It didn't even hit the Americas till 1920s.
That's what happens.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So again,
had to
it
get cool
just
over there.
like it starts over there and then it trickles across the sea, the pond, and then it shows up in America. And then like we all have interpretations of it. But French Deco is really, really fun just because the line work, again, you're going from the line work. And that's the first thing on our list is just line work.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I think is really important when you're talking about like adding the French to your home, you know, whether you live in France or you're trying to bring some of that in. If you want an iconic French home, you're going to and if you're French traditional, there's nothing more gorgeous than like the ooey gooey carved moldings. And you're going to be adding appliques and plasters and all those things to try and get this traditional look. But then you can also do it in a more modern French way too, by straightening it up. But it's all, even the French Deco is all inspired off of like ancient civilizations. Isn't that interesting that even like the newer stuff is still inspired by the old stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's not brand new. It's a new interpretation from an artist, but it's still inspired by, you know, the line and fretwork of a pyramid that you see in Deco, you know, which I think is just so fun
fascinating.
to research. Yeah.
Isn't that funny that like when Deco came on the scene, it was like this brand new, like these elongated lines and felt very graphic and so different. And everybody's like, it's this brand new thing. But then when you ask people where their inspiration comes from, you learn that it's Egypt.
Yeah.
Like so fascinating, right? Everybody
Talk about craftsmen.
is inspired.
real.
Yeah.
I
by
mean, that's
something.
a different podcast. I have my own opinions on that, but I think
wild.
but there's just something that's like when you see it, it feels nostalgic and iconic.
Yeah.
You know,
And organize the geometry of it too. But you even see that, like, again, we're going to get into carved furnishings later, but just in furniture design, you see the evolution. Kind of follow that same thing of traditional to modern French, you know, which is really just such a fascinating, a beautiful history. It's really pretty. So
Yeah. So pretty.
So that kind of covers line details, which is the first on our list of 5 ways to make sure you're like really considering the architecture, I think, of your home as you're starting to like, you know, bring this French influence in whether it's traditional or whether it's a little bit more modern, look to the greats.
And I think the line details are going to show up for you in your casings, like your moldings, that this fretwork can be applied to. We recently did a project in Rachel Parcells' basement in her theater, which whenever I think of theaters, I do think of French Deco or Art Deco, right? We kind of see those influences in theaters.
because like back in the day, like in the 30s, 40s, that's like what a movie theater was.
Film was started with,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And you would
Their
get
era.
dressed up to go, and it was like a society thing to be able to go to the movie. And so, so we did a really beautiful, I feel like, line work and fretwork details that sort of interacted with some sconces. And I just felt like, and it was like black and gold, and it was like really, really beautiful. It's a scene where you want to go in and watch a movie and take a moment to be with your family or friends and celebrate something in this dark room. And
Step back past wise, like, you know, it's influenced by somewhere. And so it kind of takes you back to that era, you know, but it was this elongated step that kind of like resembled, again, when it came to America and New York, it became kind of reminiscent of a skyscraper.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I think of Empire State Building. It's just that deco step. And you see that if you go and look at the pictures on our portfolio of Rachel Parcells' basement, you'll see that kind of zigzag fretwork that French Deco is iconic for. So
One really quick point before we move on to number 2.
yeah.
I think it was like very genius of you guys to put line details as number 1, because like it all starts with the architecture and then, you know, everything like on top of that, like whether it's like, you know, a barrel vault like corner, or you're building out a soffit to add more molding. I think that's when I look at like pictures, I'm like, that's the defining like characteristic to me. So
They respect the architecture. They respect the line work. Like every time.
So you'll see it in the casings and also carved into furnishings, right? The case goods. So I think it's kind of a carving thing, a craftsman thing. Upholstery wise, you would maybe see some of this fretwork in the patterns that they would use,
I bet, like,
right?
in the
Cut
fabric
in
mills.
velvets and stuff like that.
but also I think in sometimes like in the like upholstery itself, just like the lines of, you know, like the tailoring.
The
like,
tailoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Or I'd even say like the beading on the gowns would be done in the deco fashion and some of that line work too. So it can show up in a lot of different ways.
which is like really inspiring to think about, because they're really just drilling down into detail. Like that's that's probably why it is such long lasting, is because every detail was thought of. It's not, like I said earlier, not copy paste. It's like, how do we perfect the architecture? Then how do we perfect the fabric that's going on this? You know what I mean? And then like the inners of that, like it's inspiring to see when someone takes so much time and effort and to put in like making something truly great from top to bottom, Do
you follow Dior on Instagram?
I don't. I should though.
Everyone should, because they show these videos of just like the beadwork and the craftsmanship, and they're beautiful. I could like have them looping over and over and over again, but it just shows how meticulous it is. And it's just the craftsman. Like that's the difference. It's just like paint, like taking the time, and then painting and appreciating it,
Gosh,
like when you want to put it into your own home, right?
It makes you want to do that. It makes I want to like really put in the work, and
you're just like, I know why Dior is Dior right now when you look and see how we got there.
The painstaking method of fine craftsmanship. That's what you're getting when you get couture. Yeah. That's why it costs what it does. Yeah. It's just so much labor, such fine materials coming together. Okay. So good.
Okay.
Number 2, we have historic whites.
Okay.
When I think of French interiors, do you guys picture these beautiful sort of white spaces?
Yep.
I do too, for the most part. Yeah.
Just like warm white, like just something that's enveloping, I guess, is
it's kind of like it's a color drench, but it's a color drench in white. Like it's everything is usually white, aside from like the wood flooring or whatever natural materials. I don't think they would paint those white, but like everything is white. And that's, I think, to bring out like the moldings, is to be able to kind of, again, I say this all the time, it's the Guggenheim effect, but the French style of just like getting to make sure you get to really understand the line work. And so this historic white, we see it like, obviously you see it on exteriors and things, and it's always this like really beautiful warm. Like if you think French countryside, you think of like this like really yummy warm with like natural rock. But the whites are so pretty, and it helps everything stand off it, whether it's standing off with the actual moldings or furniture standing off of it. It's a very gallery effect of painting everything white so that everything else pops off.
Like this piece of artwork right here, that's just layered on top of all of the trim work. Like in my like, that's just such a rad thing to do. Like, it really is.
But that's the tension we talk about, where you have this like uber traditional, like all these moldings that are stacked, and then you have a piece of modern art sitting on top of that historic white. That's what makes it so good. It's so good. And this is where you would take your French lover. Anyway, it's just like, even like when it's undone, it's beautiful.
Just like, various shades of white. Those of you not watching on YouTube, this is an image of a beautiful bedroom in more of like a toned white with lots of gorgeous moldings. And then the bed has various shades of whites and off-whites, and then the drapery.
Linens and gauzes.
All natural whites, natural materials. But the layering of whites here feels really rich for being void of color.
And
it's got a lot of
shadows and texture. There's a lot of texture.
And there's a note about that, about they wanted to get as much natural light as possible into their spaces. I don't know if that's because, kind of like in New York, how the apartments are so close together that even if you have a window, it's facing another brick building and it's hard to get light in.
Or you have in the front of your house and the back of your house because you're sandwiched on either side.
So painting a space white, especially if you don't have a lot of natural light, is going to it's going to really let that natural light do its thing and dance on it. And it's a luxury, I think, to have natural light, especially in a city.
Yeah. Do you ever see like photos like that? Like, you live in an older home. I used to live in one. I feel like the windows were so small.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why the hell did they do this? And then I see stuff like that where there's floor to ceiling windows. Like, could we have not borrowed that a little bit? You know what I mean? In these homes.
The 1970s just went rogue.
Yeah, for real.
Just like, we're going to do what we want.
A 2x2 window? No, thank you.
I know.
This space is a new build. This is
a new build in Texas. And I stumbled across this apartment. They did such a beautiful job, I thought, of kind of recreating this French interior. And again, with the stacked moldings, it was all painted a historic, light white. You have the cast limestone fireplace and overmantel. And then they contrasted with like that French blue, which we're going to get into next. But they did a phenomenal job, I think, referencing like what the French are great at.
Yeah, celebrating all the skilled craftsmen. And Yeah, like even the upholstery on those sofas like had framed out tapes and, you know, the details in the tailoring. It's like, we're going to spend the time on it because that's what the French would do.
It's very like dressmaker oriented. I love it so much. Okay.
I love that.
Okay.
So we've done number 1, line details. Number 2, historic whites. Our third one is French blue. I feel like when I think of France, I think of those dusty blues. I think of old stone homes with blue shutters on it. Even the interior doors sometimes were painted this sort of dusty blue shade.
So pretty.
Yeah. What does the blue come from? Why did they always do?
I think it was to cool down.
Blues. Yeah. Reminiscent of the water and
the Mediterranean like waters and everything, and bringing that inland. And so you get all these different shades of blues, which is really pretty. And I think again, when we worked on the French Country, we had a home that was published in French Country magazine. And there's a lot of references to that blue. And like she even did her windows, like the actual wood windows.
Oh, pretty.
Her Desiree's
Yeah.
Anyway, she did those in blue, and it was so beautifully done and reminiscent of a French home.
Yeah. She loved the Gustavian style, which is really
gorgeous.
pared down and really comfortable. Sort of a casualness to it. So you didn't have that sort of hyper formal interior element that the Parisian have. Yeah. So that's a really comfortable way to do it.
I know. And even in some of those like pictures that we just showed you of the white interiors, they even had like some of the blue furniture layered on top of it.
Yeah.
You guys, I have a research paper in front of us, just so y'all know.
Man, this podcast could legitimately be 2 hours.
Yeah, this is a very Parisian high-end interior, French formal, I would say.
Pinto, very French formal. But he does such a beautiful job. He actually is really good at mixing. He's passed away, but Alberto Pinto is like quintessential, I think, so iconic in French interiors. He's beautiful. And I just love the different shades of blue he's added here in this interior. Again, it's ooey and gooey and ornate. And again, it feels like it's out of a castle. It's so beautiful. But the blue is it. The blue is stunning.
Yeah.
Okay, so add it when you can if you want a little bit of that French interior. So,
yes, agreed.
Carved furniture. No, sorry, stone.
Stone,
guys.
Yep.
Stone's number 4. When I think of the French house, I do think of stone, or even the really beautiful high-end mansions. I think of limestone walls, living finishes, of course, and always. And another stone we think of always with the French is marble. So let's get into stone.
Yeah, and we have a few different visuals. Again, this one right here is, again, when you think of like old like French countryside, you think of the old ancient stacked stone. Again, when we're trying to overgrout and try and like repent for like bad stones, and we're like, let's overgrout it, let's trim and smear all those things. It's to look more like this, just like where it's foundational stone, and it's so good, and you know that the thing is solid because it's sat there for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we have a couple different examples of this on an interior also. I think this is such a beautiful example of an interior space where you feel, again, this is something that people always ask us. They're like, is this an appropriate time to do a stone wall or a brick wall? And I'm like, is it happening on the the exterior side of that wall? And they're like, no, but I thought brick could be cool. And I'm like, don't do it. Like, unless it's architecturally true and you know that thing is a monolith equal from like one side to the other and the entire thing is stone, it's not authentic. It's not genuine. And so this is a really great, I know the other side of that is stone.
Totally.
And the interior is stone.
Yeah.
And so they probably like peeled off some lath and plaster on that to expose it possibly. Yeah. But it's genuine and it feels real because it is real. So
the depth of that windowsill in there too is just like, gosh, dang.
Right?
Yeah.
Just don't make them like these two.
For real.
I want to use the word integrity. Like integrity is like saying who we are and being that person. I think if you're a stone house and you have stone on the opposite side of that wall, then that is true. That has integrity, right?
Solid point.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love when that's integral to the exteriors, the interiors, and it's just so believable. And, a really fantastic architect, had his hand in that.
Yep. Anyway, so that's kind of like exterior stone brings down to interior with like an exterior stone material. Again, like Jess said, you feel like the limestone stacks on like Parisian like cities, and it's so beautiful. This is actually Versailles. And it's so pretty. And it's a great example of just like the marble tile. Everybody like comes and they're just like, you're so good at marble tile entries. And so it's something that we have a good time, modernizing, or again, kind of making our own take on this kind of modern French interior. And so again, just a reminder that how good they are. This has both limestone as well as the marble. And it's so beautiful. And like, I would never tire of it.
Yeah.
It's iconic. You have the checkerboard flooring for those of you listening. And then you have that beautiful staircase that Versailles is so iconic for. And then you have, those exterior surfaces felt on the interior walls, which is just stunning. So
let me say this to tell you how much of a noob I am to this. My wife's grandma passed away. I think it was 2019. So Mario and I have been married for like 3 years. I'd met her a few times. She lived in Idaho, and she had like a very like Idahoan home, but like on the inside, it was like totally French traditional. She had like everything. Yeah. It was like, and then she had all these like really cool paintings, like with these like really rad frames. And when we inherited a couple of them, I was just like, I just didn't like understand it. But because was my wife's grandma, and like, she's just really one of the coolest people. We've like lived with them, and now I like see them every day, and like I absolutely love them because I've just like grown to understand it kind of like through osmosis just from being around it, you know? So it really is, so when I like saw that picture, I was like, it totally just reminded me of like her, and I just those frames, and I love that we have them, you know?
The craftsmanship. You
Yeah.
know that it was hand carved.
It's elevated.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, her.
So
Okay,
good.
so that's number 4, and that's stone. And then the last one is 5, and that is carved furniture.
Carved furniture. This is
Guys.
something that we can all do in our interiors today, wherever you are in your journey. I think looking for, even the carved frames that you just talked about in your artwork, right? Getting a pair of old Bergère chairs or one of the Louis chairs, getting that in front of a mantle. There's so many attributes to this that just all of a sudden makes your room feel like it's scholastic.
It's elevated.
Yeah.
It's completely elevated.
It's extraordinary.
Especially when you do have like clean pieces of furniture, say your sofa. It's just like really has clean lines. It's modern. It's comfortable. When you put like a Louis the 15th next to, or Louis the 16th next to it, like again, you just get the contrast is so rich. It's so good.
Can we define those?
Yes, the Louis.
Yeah.
You guys, this is one of those classes that I'm like, I wish I could take this again, because like this is my favorite.
Art history.
Yeah, no, it's architectural, history of furnishings. It's such a good class. Anyway, so Louis the 14th was like kind of like your Rococo. This is a what do they call it?
The chest.
Yeah, the chest. They had an even more beautiful name for it, and I can't remember. Anyway, but
a commode.
Yes, it's a commode. I think it was a commode. Yes, it's so beautiful, and like he just really had. He's the one that took Versailles from like a hunting lodge to exhibit all of his luxurious furnishings. He was the Sun King, and so that's Louis the 14th, and just beautiful, really ornate, very very decorative, heavy on applique and on the gold leaf and on the moldings.
I wonder if this is a research project in my head I want to take on now, but I wonder if this is Versace's favorite, because when you say Sun King, when you think of Versace, he has that sort of logo of the sun sort of peeking up with the rays, and they are so ornate, right? There's not very many people that can pull Versace off because it is so over the top. And I think of all of the Louis, this one I'm like, I don't know this girl. This is so fancy, right? Like there's definitely a place for it, but this person is the most highly decorated general of all the French decor.
Really?
Yes.
Truly.
Yeah.
No,
it's the Versace of the fashion world.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And then it's fun when you like do research this again, you go from Louis the 14th to Louis the 15th, which becomes a little bit more romantic. And you can kind of see the cabriolet, which is I think most people are familiar with when you think of like a Bergère chair that has that kind of like continuous curve that kind of S's out. And that is iconic for Louis the 15th. Again, it's a little sweeter and kind of a simplified version. Obviously, there's remnants of Louis the 14th, but you can see how they simplify, like, king to king. And so this is a great example of a Louis the 14th little caned back chair, which is really, really beautiful.
And caning is on both sides, which is cool.
Just keeping it open.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my favorite's Louis the 16th. I love the block and taper leg. Again, you're starting to clean things up, and the lines, again, they react to the previous period, right? And so they're just like, it's starting to go towards the empire as well. But Louis the 16th was just kind of like, let them eat cake. kind of think that was that area. And that block and taper leg, I think that's probably what we see the very most and what people react to the very most when we put it in interiors, is because you're getting that ornate carving, but it's still not too frilly or fancy for, one of the people in the relationship.
Yeah.
But it still feels iconic. It feels historic and successful. And so that is Louis XVI. So these are just like a few, just like quick cliff notes on carved furnishings that, again, will help that that whole French expression be translated into a home today. Whether you're in France or whether you're in America or wherever you be, Bahrain, wherever you're at, if you want French, like these are little ways to incorporate that into your home.
Yeah. This is kind of a fun inside scoop. We'll see if anything comes of this, but Sue and I have a friend that we visit with at market and sometimes DM on Instagram and whatnot. And he's a furniture designer for several lines. His name's Thor Tabor, and Thor and I,
it's not a cool name.
Thor and I were DMing, and he had just had a meeting with RH, and he is developing some furnishings for them. They're flirting with each other right now, and he feels really strongly that they need to get back to block and taper and some of those styles. So I'm curious if we'll start to see that in another year or two, if they'll start to get back to that. But I do agree with him. There's something so classical and timeless and non-trending about that block and taper.
Yeah. It's forever cool, forever good.
Are we talking
French.
about like what we're working on or no?
Well, I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you guys working on?
Well, it's funny because we are also working on our own little French collection in product development.
Which was kind of separate from this. It wasn't. It's serendipitous how it came together.
Yeah, totally. We've been working on a set of different French chests for a little while. And then we also been working on what I would say would be more of like the country side of, if you're living in France, that you would live more casually. Yeah. And so, but then we also have this set of lamps that's very classicals with angels on it for mantles and more formal stuff in marble. And so we're putting all of this together in a collection that is going to be a French collection for us. We're still working out the name. Mm-hmm. I think we're probably like 6 months to a year out.
Probably something like that, yeah.
But I think it's a great way to have an entire French lifestyle, whether you be on the more casual end or the more formal end. We believe it's in the mix where you're going to get the look and it's going to be timeless because it's from the different periods and centuries and influences. And you can still live casually with it, where maybe you're going to use the French in your entry or the chest in your entryway. And then as you get back toward the part of the house where you live every day and you live more casually, some of these other pieces will sort of tuck in. So anyway, yeah, I'm super excited and so juiced about it.
The other cool thing too is obviously we've like now kind of like have all these like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about this collection and how we can make it great, I was like, man, we've already been working on some of these things independently from each other, not knowing we were going to like have a collection. And then like we have all these things, these irons in the fire. And then like, when you presented to us last week and you're like, we're doing all these things and this could totally be a French collection. I was like, yeah, like, I mean, that's, we've been doing it. We just didn't know we were, which is really cool. So and that kind of just shows that like, Jess has, the French influence in the back of your mind. So I'm super excited about it. It feels good to kind of like, I don't know, get a collection of these things. It's like we're releasing an album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
I'm so excited.
Well, it also allows us to see like where are the holes, because we have so much of like, we have the dining table, we have 2 sets of chairs, we have the entry chest, but then we're like, what are we doing for the rugs? And actually that brings me to a really good point. I have a gorgeous image I wanted to show you. A couple gorgeous ones that we love, these finished interiors that have all of these elements in it. And in this one that we're showing right now, it's grounded in a jute rug, a really good looking, braided jute rug. But I think that's such a humble way to sort of set a ground. But then they have the bright white interior. They have modern art. They've got, these portraits, French gilded mirrors in it. But the mix of high and low, but still great craftsmanship, feels so cool. In interior, you've got the tension of, modern with, more humble things. You've got these great floors. So I'm super excited to just get the mix in a collection. And wherever you are on your French journey, there will be something for you in the mix.
And that's what they're great at. They're great at the collected mix.
Yeah. I also think this French interior is just fantastic.
Yes. This is Joseph Durand. So there you go.
Yeah. We've got the curved
done.
frames, which the curved frames have been just so chic.
Yes.
You know, I just think that's the definition of chic. But you've got a lot of soft lines in here, but then you've still got these precise moldings and great line work that crisp everything up. The massive moldings, what do you think? Those are like 8 to 16 inches tall, 14 inches tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, those inset French doors and the curly black iron railings outside.
Like those windows, though, like,
Oh.
man, I want those in my house, like opening like that. And, yeah,
Extraordinary.
it's so cool.
The breeze
Yeah.
would be better coming through those.
Yeah, definitely.
It would, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then even this interior, I think, is just so special.
The
Really,
contrast, I think, is what, like,
yeah,
because they paint everything that historic white, everything's allowed to contrast with it, and you get to like appreciate it all.
yep. But that white interior, and then you add in a little bit of the black, which I think, you know, great French interiors do, the white frames on the chairs. You get the contrast, but this feels like maybe one of those more country houses with the really heavy beamed ceiling, but all drenched in white. And then you let this furniture do the work. Still feels dressy, but you could still walk through here with bare feet and feel comfortable.
Respected the architecture.
And that bench
And
as
I
like
know all
a
these.
coffee
cocktail.
table?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
right?
cool.
We should do that in our collection.
Mhm.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys, this has been really fun.
So fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy watching the Olympics.
I
It's
know.
gonna, it's going to be awesome.
know.
100%.
Can't wait
What
to
a
see who wins.
beautiful, beautiful backdrop. So good. Well, thank you guys for listening and joining in our celebration of French inspiration. And we've been feeling inspired lately, and we have a cache of new arrivals that just came out. So there's a lot to celebrate in our latest product release. We've got a Jude lounge chair, which is reminiscent of Swiss architect Jeanneret.
Yep.
And it's so beautiful. The boucle is just beautiful. A darkened walnut on that. And then we had a new Marlowe bed that just launched.
One of my
which
favorites.
Yeah.
Looks so good on the floor, huh? Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, in this really beautiful moss green, palm green.
So good.
Yeah. Great dip in it. We've got a more modern bar stool that also has a matching chair that we're calling Luna.
Mhm.
French word.
That is so good. It's so comfortable, but again, the proportions of it feel like something of yesteryear, but it's like comfortable.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love it.
Thank
It's
you.
going to clean up any space.
Yep.
Kind of like we were talking about getting some of this French modernism into these older spaces. And then we came out with a series of cloches. You know, we love a candle accoutrement, guys. We love a candle dish. We love a candle snuffer. This is a candle cloche. And we came out with 3 colors.
They're so pretty.
Yeah, the clear we're calling salt. The we have kind of a rosy red color we're calling spice. And then we have a really dark kind of charcoal smoky one that we're calling smoke.
Yes. It is smoke.
Right?
Yep.
Smoke, spice, and salt. Anyway, they're so chic. I'm
so
super
beautiful.
excited for you guys to get your hands on those. So anyway, lots to be excited about. Lots of stuff to come. But I was going to say, those of you that are listening, don't forget that you get an exclusive discount. So thank you for listening. That discount is 20% off your order, and just use Dear Alice at the checkout. It includes all the new releases, which don't usually go on sale, but since you guys are listeners, anytime you want your 20% off discount, just use Dear Alice, and we're going to hook you up. So we hope that gets you more Alice Lane in your home. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like our show, please leave a 5-star rating.